The valet handed Clara the paper ticket with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. She smoothed the front of her deep green dress and walked into the lobby of the Sentinel Hotel, where the Portland Architecture Foundation was holding its annual gala. Ethan had told her he'd meet her inside. He was running late, he'd texted from the car. Something about a last-minute client call. She found their table near the stage, placed her clutch on the chair, and was reaching for a glass of champagne from a passing tray when she heard his laugh. That laugh, the one he used for clients, for strangers, for people he wanted to impress. She turned. Ethan was walking toward her with a woman on his arm. Maya Torres, his secretary, the woman who answered his phone, scheduled his meetings, and apparently, now, accompanied him to black tie events. Maya was wearing a silver dress that caught the light with every step, and she was holding Ethan's elbow like she'd done it 100 times. Clara, hey, Ethan said, leaning in to kiss her cheek. His breath smelled like Scott. You remember Maya? Clara looked at Maya. Maya looked back with an expression that was carefully neutral. Polite, almost apologetic, but not quite. Of course, Clara said. Her voice sounded steady to her own ears, which was a small miracle. I didn't realize you were coming tonight. Ethan said it would be good for me to meet some of the firm's contacts. Maya said, professional development. She said it like a phrase she'd rehearsed. Ethan was already flagging down a way. It's a work thing, Clara. The foundation's been on us about diversity in the firm, and Maya's been handling the community outreach portfolio. Bringing her made sense. He said all of this without looking at her, his eyes scanning the room for someone more important. Clara felt the champagne flute warm between her fingers. You could have told me. I told you I was running. I didn't think it warranted a separate announcement. Now he looked at her, and his expression shifted, just slightly, into the one she knew too. The patient husband, the reasonable man. Don't make a thing out of this. It's a charity gala. Everyone's watching. Don't make a thing out of this. There was the sentence that had defined 12 years of marriage. Every time she felt something, hurt, anger, the cold prickle of suspicion, she was the one making She was the one overting. He was the one being mature, smiled. It felt like cut glass, of course. You're right. Then nodded, satisfied, and turned to greet a man from the plant commission. Maya stood beside him, her hand still resting his elbow, and Clara watched the two form. Ethan, the care's partner. Maya, the poisegé. What? This is what it looks like. This is what everyone else sees. A successful man and his capable assistant. A wife grateful. She excused herself and walked room. The door clicked behind her. She stood at the sink and looked. Her makeup perfect. Her not shaking. That was almost worse. She'd be shaking. Wanted to feel something that matched the noise inside her chest. But her body had learned long to hold still. She took her phone out of her clutch and name. Marcus, her assistant. The man who'd spent 3 weeks helping her prepare the Northwood Living campaign. Who knew her coffee order and her deadline anxiety and absolutely marriage. She typed, "Is he tonight?" His reply in 40 seconds. Just left the gym. She typed, "I need a favor. There's a gala at the Sentinel Hotel downtown. I need you to put on a suit +1. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, you want me to what? Clara herself in the mirror. She thought about Maya's elbow. She thought about don't make a thing out of this. She thought about 12 years of being the reasonable wife, the mature wife, the wouldn't overreact. She typed, later. Please. She put the phone away, touched up her lipstick, and ballroom. Ethan was mid-conversation with a group of 3, his side. Clara sat down at the ticked up her champagne. She didn't drink it. She did. 20 minutes later, the ballroom doors walked in. He was wearing a dark suit that was slightly too big in the shoulders, the only one he owned, and he was scanning the room with the uncomfortable expression of a man who had walked into. When he spotted Clara, he relaxed just a little. Clara stood up, walked, and took his arm. She could feel Ethan's eyes on her before she even turned around. She smiled up at Marcus, genuine for the first time at night, and said, just loud enough to hear, "Marcus, you made it. Thanks you to everyone." She walked him back to the table, his arm warm beneath her hand, and she said, "Ethan, you remember Webb, my assistant. Marcus, this is my husband, and Maya." Ethan's face didn't. Not at first. But Clara had been married to him for 2 years, and she saw it, the slight tightening of his jaw, the way his glass had degreed too far. Maya's polite smile flickered. "Your assistant," Ethan said. "It wasn't a question." "Yes," Clara said. "He works so hard. I thought it was only fair to see how the other half lived." She kept smiling. Professional development, you know. The band started. Someone pulled out a chair. Marcus stood very still beside her, and Clara could feel him. What the hell was going on? But he didn't. Just stood there. She was grateful, then set his glass down on the table. The sound, but Clara heard it like a bell. Clara, he said, low enough that only she could hear. A word. She looked at him. At the man she'd married at 26, who'd promised to always be honest with her, who'd stood in this very hotel 6 years ago and accepted a career award while she sat and clapped until her hands hurt. Sure, she said. After dinner, she said. Marcus sat down beside her. The first course arrived, and picked up her fork, and she knew, with a settled in her chest like stone, that whatever happened after this dinner was going back to the way it was. The drive home was silent. Ethan kept both hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2, which he only did when he was furious. Clara watched the streetlights slide across the windshield and thought about how quiet the car got when neither person was willing to be the first one to brake. He pulled into the driveway of their Craftsman on S.E. Reed College Place and turned off the engine. The garage door rumbled open. They walked inside together, and the moment the front door clicked shut, Ethan turned on her. What was that? Clara set her clutch on the entryway table. What was what? Marcus, your assistant. You brought him to a black tie event like what? Like we're on some kind of double date. He pulled off his jacket and tossed it over the stair rail. You made a scene, Clara. In front of my colleague. In front of Voss. I made a scene. She turned to face. You brought your secretary. In a silver dress. Holding your arm. And I'm the one who made it. Maya was there. His voice had that particular edge. The reasonable manage. The one that said, I am explaining this calmly, and you are being irrational. I told. She's been running the community outreach initiative. The foundation people wanted. Then why didn't you tell me? Clara heard her own voice rising and hated that he could do her. Could make her sound like the angry wife while he stood there looking like the patient. Why didn't you say, Clara, Maya's coming with me tonight, just... Why did I have to find out by watching you walk in with her arm? Ethan ran a hand. Because I knew this. I knew you'd turn it into something. Paused. You've been like this once. Every time Maya's name comes up, you get this look. I can't have a professional relationship with a woman who works for me without you. A professional relationship. Clara laughed, and it came out sharp. She was holding your... She was walking into a room full of strangers. Nervous. Stepped closer, and Clara smelled again. You know what? Maybe you should talk to someone, a therapist. You've been under so much pressure, I think. The word came out quieted. Don't you dare diagnose me because I'm upset that my husband brought another... They stood in the front hallway, the chandelier above them, throwing light across the floorboards they'd refinished together 3 years ago. Clara could hear their humming. Somewhere outside barked. Going to bed. Ethan said finally, we can talk about them down. Clara heard the door close. She stood in the hallway for a long time, then walked into the kitchen and poured herself a glass of water. We're shaking now. She set the glass down on her. The next morning, Clara by 8. She had a 9 o'clock meeting with her boss, Helen, about the campaign numbers, and she'd spent the car ride rehearsed to say. She was not going to let last bleed into her work as a professional. Helen was already in her. Clara knocked. Come in, close the door. Clara and sat down. Didn't open her laptop. She didn't pull up the campaign deck. She just looked at Clara with an expression quite read. Clara, I got a call yesterday. Ethan, I'm tilted. What? Me yesterday afternoon, before the gala. Helen folded her hands on her desk. He said you've had a lot of stress lately. That you're having trouble sleeping. That you've been emotional. He wanted to make sure I was aware, in case you needed time off or flexibility. Clara felt her mouth dry. He called you. Tell my boss I'm emotional. He framed it as concern. Helen's voice was careful. Clara, I'm not going and I know what's going on at home. But I need you to know that doesn't change how I see your work. You're the best directors I've ever had. That said, if something is going on that's affecting you, I'd rather hear it from you. Clara nodded. She couldn't speak. She stood up, walked back to her office and closed the door. She sat at her desk and looked at her phone. Ethan's name was at the top of her recent. She didn't call him. She didn't text him. She opened her email message to Dana. Her fingers moved slow, then faster. By the time she hit send, the email was 3 paragraphs long, and the last line was, know exactly what we have. What's mine, what's his, and what's ours? Because I think he just declared going into it unarmed. She sat back in her chair. Outside her window, Portland was gray and wet. The kind of morning that made everything look like a one left out in the rain. Her phone buzzed. Ethan, can we talk? I want to fix this. Clara stared at the message. She thought about his call to Helen. She thought about don't make a scene. She thought about 12 years of being the reasonable one, the calm one, the one who didn't overreact. She typed, we'll talk. But not about fixing anything, about what's actually happening. She put the phone face and opened her campaign deck. The numbers were still there, waiting. She had a meeting in 20 minutes, and she was going to walk into that room and she was going to be brilliant. Because whatever Ethan was doing, it's from her. Not here. Not a place where she knew exactly who she was. But when she stood up, her hand was still shaking, and she had to grip the door for a second before she could walk out. Dana's office was above a coffee shop on Eni, Alberta, in a space that smelled like roasted beans and old paper. She had a whiteboard on one wall covered in tax deadlines and client initials, and a jar of sourdough pretzels on her desk that she never offered to anyone. Sit. Dana pointed to a chair. She didn't look up from her laptop. You look like hell. Thanks. Clara sat. I need you to look at something. She pulled out a folder. She'd spent last night and every free minute today going through the shared checking account statements, the credit card bills, the investment portfolio summaries. She'd made copies. She'd highlighted things in yellow. It felt absurdly clinical. Sitting across from her college friend with financial documents like they were preparing for a corporate audit instead of the possible collapse of her marriage, Dana flipped through the pages. Her pen tapped against her front tooth, a habit she'd had since they were 20. Okay, walk me through what's bothering you. These. Clara pointed to 3 line items on the joint credit card. A hotel in Seattle, 2 nights, last November. A jewelry store downtown, $1,400. And this. Consulting services, Monsieur Torres, $2,000 recurring for 4 months. Dana's pen stopped. Monsieur Torres, as in Maya Torres, as in his secretary. Clara's voice was flat. She'd cried about it in the shower that morning. Hot water running over her face so she couldn't hear her. And now she was done crying. The hotel was the same weekend he said he was at a design conference. The jewelry, he never gave me any. And the consulting fee? She's on site. Why is he paying her extra as a consent? Dana set the... I need to ask you something, and I need you to not get... I'm already mad. Do you want to save this marriage, or do you want to be prepared for when it... The question hung. Outside, a bus rumbled. Clara looked at the whiteboard, at the client initials and deadlines, at the normalcy of other people's... I don't know, I did. But then he called boss. He called Helen Dana to tell her I'm emotional. Who's that? Someone who's scared. Back. Someone who knows he's losing control of the narrative and is trying to frame. She picked up. Here's what I can tell you. If these payments are for an account, you have every right to question them. If he's using marital funds to support a relationship out the marriage, that matters in a divorce. But, and this is important, none of this proves he's cheating. The hotel would be legitimate. The jewelry could be a gift he hadn't given you yet. The consulting fee could be, repeated. Could be. But you're not... held her gaze. You're overreacting. You're paying attention. And that... Clara drove home with the folded passenger seat. The house was... She pulled in. Ethan's car was in the driveway. She let herself in and stood in the kitchen for a minute. Then she went upstairs and opened the closet. The guest room had become storage space. Old coats. A treadmill Ethan had been used twice. Boxes of books they'd never unpacked after moving in. Claire clearing it out. She carried it to the basement. She folded the coats in the closet. She stripped the bed and put on fresh sheets. By the time she was done, the room was small but clean, with a window that faced the backyard stand. At 9. He found her in the dishwasher. We need to, he said. I agree. Clara closed the dishwasher and turned to face him. I have 2 things to say. First, from now on, if you're bringing Maya to any social event, any event where I'm also present, or where people know us as a couple, in advance. You don't spring it on me. That's not a request. That's a boundary, Ethan. A boundary. Second, she took a breath. Been looking at our accounts. There are charges I can't explain. A hotel in Seattle, jewelry, payments to Maya listed as consulting. To explain them to me. The change in him was immediate. Reasonable husband vanished. His jaw set. Going through our finances? Behind my back? It's not behind my back. It's I have every right. Treating me like a criminal. He stepped toward her, and for half a second he was going to shout. Instead, a short bitter. You know what? This is talking about with Helen. You're spiraling. You're inventing scenarios because you're unhappy, and you're taking it out on me. Don't bring Helen into this. Then stop acting like my wife. He ran a hand through his hair. The hotel was a conference. The jewel Christmas present for my mother. You know she's been sick. The consulting fee is for freelance work Maya did on the community project. Voss approved it. You can ask him. Clara stared at him. Every explanation was plausible. Every explanation had a loophole she could drive a truck through, but he said them with such conviction, such wounded sincerity, that for a felt the old doubt creep in. The maybe I am the maybe I'm the problem. She pushed it away. I'm moving into the guest. Ethan went still. What? I need space. I'm not saying we're done. I'm saying I can't sleep in the same bed and everything is fine. Picked up her pillow from the living room couch. Have her things upstairs. I'll be in the guest room. We can talk tomorrow or not, but I'm not doing this tonight. She was stairs. She didn't look back. Behind her, she heard Ethan pick up his keys and leave. The front door opening and closing. The car's tires pulling out of the driveway. She sat on the edge of the guest room bed. The sheet smelled like laundry detergent. She'd made the bed herself. She was in a room she'd herself, in a house she partly owned, and she felt for the first time in years on ground that belonged. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. She picked up. The message was from Maya Torres. We need to talk, Ethan, about something you should. Clara stared at the screen. The lamp on the nightstand cast a warm circle of light. Outside, the Portland rain sounded soft at first, then steady. Someone asking to be let in. She back. Not yet. But she didn't delete the message either. Clara didn't text Maya back. She told herself it was because she didn't trust the timing, that anything Maya had to say was probably designed to protect Maya, not Clara. But the truth was simpler. She was afraid of what she might hear. Some truths you could prepare for. Others walked in through the front door uninvited. Linda arrived on Saturday at 11 in the morning, which was early for her. She usually showed up around 1, after her bridge club, carrying a Tupperware of something dry and overcooked. Today she was carrying nothing, and she was wearing the coat she saved for funerals. Mom, Ethan said, surprised. He was in the kitchen making coffee, which he only did when he was trying to seem normal. What are you doing here? Can't a mother visit her son? Linda kissed his cheek, then turned to Clara. Her smile was the kind that didn't involve her eyes. Clara, you look tired. I didn't sleep well. Clara was folding laundry on the couch. She'd been doing it for 20 minutes, mostly because it gave her something to do with her hand. Linda's gaze drifted to the staircase. I see the guest room door is open. Is someone staying with us? The room went quiet. Ethan set down his coffee. Clara kept folding a towel, her movements precise. No, Ethan said. Clara's been used. She's been having trouble sleeping, and the guest room mattress is. Linda's expression shifted into something that looked like concern and felt like judgment. Oh, She sat down in the armchair, the one she'd given them as a wedding gift, the one Clara had, and patted her. Come here, Clara. Clara didn't go. She set the towel. About my. Linda's voice was dull, the way you'd speak to a child who was about to touch a hot. Ethan is a. He word. He bides, and yes, sometimes he's. All men are thoughtless. Heaven knows your father. But you don't want to push him away over something that could be fixed with a Clara felt her pulse in her ears. Did Ethan ask him here? Clara? Ethan started. No. Linda hand. I saw the photos from the gala on Mayagram. That girl posted pictures of herself event. And one of them, she's standing right. I saw comments. People were asking her. Linda shook her head. I came because I'm worried about you. This girl is young and she's putting herself out there, and Ethan is too polite. But you, Clara, are the wife. You need to be the bigger person. You need to show him that your marriage is stronger than some girl. At her. Maya's Instagram. Maya had posted photos. Had seen them. Linda had been here on her own. Not Ethan called her, but because she'd been scrolling through a 29-year-old's social media and intervene. Clara had spent the last 2 days assuming Ethan had. His mother told her to pressure Clara, to say the things he could. She'd built an entire around it. Ethan the strategist, Ethan the puppet master, Ethan Dring. But Linda was here. Because she'd seen a photo and made a decision. Ethan called anyone. He was standing in the kitchen looking as blind as I felt. The realization her. Instead, I feel sick. Because if Ethan called Linda, then she'd been wrong again. She'd been wrong about the hotel, wrong about the jewelry, wrong the consulting fee, and about Linda. What was she wrong about? I need some, Clara said. She grabbed her coat and walked out the front door before. She walked to the coffee 3 blocks away, the one with the orange awning and the barista order. She ordered a drip coffee and sat at a corner table called Dana. Your mother-in-law showed up because of Instagram? Dana's voice was equal parts incredulous and tired. Clara, listen to me. This changes things. If Maya is putting photos publicly, that's not a secret affair. That's either a woman who doesn't care who knows, or a woman who's trying to make it isn't. What are you saying? I'm saying you need to sing and start collecting. Real evidence. Bank records, emails, texts if you can get them. Not Instagram photos and not your mother's interpretation of them. Dana paused. And you need to calm down. You're making decisions based on what you think is happening, not what you know. The words landed like a slip. Calm down? Clara's voice rose. That's what Eric says. Ethan says it. My mother-in-law says it. Now you're supposed to be on my side. I am on your side, telling you the truth. Dana's tone didn't soften. Being angry doesn't make you right. It just makes you angry. And right now, you're angry back. Clara ended the call. She sat in the shop with her coffee getting cold, and she thought about all the people who were telling her to be reasonable. Ethan, now Dana. The only person who helped her to calm down was Marcus, and Marcus had been pulled into this mess against his will and was probably reading that text. Home an hour later. Linda's car was gone. Ethan was in the living room, dark with the TV on. She left, he said without looking up. Was sorry if she overstepped. Clara stood in the doorway. Ethan, is my photos of you two on Instagram? He finally looked at her. His face was tired, and for a moment something beneath the composure that looked like fear. I didn't know she'd done that. I told her not to post anything, she said. Yeah, he turned back to. She did. Clara went upstairs to the guest room. She closed the door and sat on the bed. She took out and found Maya's Instagram profile. The gala photos were there, Maya in the silver dress, Maya laughing with a group of people, Maya beside Ethan with her hand on his arm. The caption reading, "Full for a team feels like family." Family. Clara stared at the word. She thought about Linda's visit, about Ethan's fear. She thought she'd misread every signal this week. Assumption had led her further from the truth. She opened her text thread with Maya. From 3 days ago with, "We need to talk." Not about Ethan, about something you should. Clara typed, "When are you free?" She hit send before she could talk herself out of it. Then she turned off her phone and lay down on the guest room bed, staring at the ceiling, and waited for the answer that would tell her what was actually going on. Maya wanted to meet at a tea shop on Hawthorne, the kind with floor cushions and ambient sitar music that Clara associated with college students and people who did yoga before work. She arrived 10 minutes early and sat at a corner table, watching the door. Maya came in at exactly 2 o'clock. She was wearing jeans and a sweater, no makeup, and she looked younger than she had at the gala, younger and more tired. She ordered a chamomile tea and sat down across from Clara without saying hello. "I'm not sleeping with him," Maya said. Clara blinked. It's what you wanted to know. So I'm telling you, we're not sleeping together. Not yet anyway. He's tried. I've deflected. Maya stirred her tea with a spoon, the metal clinking against ceramic. He tells me I'm special, that his wife doesn't understand him, that you're cold and distant and you haven't touched him in months. Does any of that sound familiar? Clara felt her face. He tells you about our sex life? He tells me everything. Or his version of everything. Maya finally looked at her. I'm not here to make excuses for myself. I knew what I was doing when I let him pay for my coffee, when I let him call me and when I put my hand on his arm at that But I also knew that if I said no, I'd lose my job. And I can't lose my job. I have student loans. I have a mom in a nursing home. I make $48,000 a year in this economy. I can't afford Prince. The tea shop warm. Clara's hands. Then why are you telling us? Because he's using Maya set the consulting fees? Those aren't freelance work. Voss doesn't know about them. Ethan has been routing payments through a vendor account trolls. M. Torres Consulting, which is just him paying me extra. 4 months, $2,000 a month. He said it was for special projects. Took it. Not proud of it. But I took it, Clara assured her. The sitar groaned on. Somewhat shattered. You're telling me he's embezzling. I'm telling you he's using company funds, hush money. Or whatever you want to call it. Money that should be going to the firm, to Voss, to the business. Maya's voice cracked, just slightly. Kept the records. The emails. The deposit slips. I kept everything because I knew some would blow up. And I didn't want to be the only. Give them to me. I'm tired. Maya wanted her tea. Because he called your. Did you know that? He told your boss you were unstable. That's not love, Clara, that's control. And the next person he'll do it to is me. The moment I stop playing along, I'm the unstable one. I'm the one who misread his kindness. I'm the one who gets fired in town. She slid a USB drive across the table. It was small, blue, the kind you get free at conferences. Everything's on here. Emails, payment confirmations, text screenshots. I kept it all. Do whatever you want with it. But if you use it, you use all of it, including the parts that make me look bad. I'm not asking for mercy. I'm asking for the truth. Clara picked up the drive, warm from Maya's hand. Why should I trust? You should. Maya stood up. You should trust the evidence. That's what I would do. She left. Sat there for a long time, USB drive in her palm, chamomile tea growing cold. Then she put it and walked out to her car. The parking lot. I owe you an apology. Yeah, you do. Dana didn't sound angry. She sounded What happened? I met with Ma. She gave me something. I need you to look at it with me, and I need you to tell me if I'm crazy or what I think it is. I'll order Thai. At Dana's apartment, they spread the documents across the dining room table. The USB drive contained over 200 emails, a spreadsheet of payments, and a folder of text message screenshots. His eyes widened as she read. Clara watched her friend's face from curiosity to concern, thing that looked like Clara. Dana said finally, this isn't just marital infidelity. This is financial misconduct. If Voss sees this, Ethan could lose his ship. He could dude. I know. Clara sat down. Her weak. I know what it is. Then what are you going to do? Clara looked at the papers. She thought about Ethan's voice on the phone, telling Helen she was emotional. She thought about his visit, about the guest room, about 12-year-old she was overreacting, about Maya's face in the tea shop, young, tired. I don't know, she said. The first time I know what's happening. And that's something. Dana reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Welcome back to Rudy. It sucks, but at least real. Claire almost smiled, and her phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Maya just resigned. Said she found another job. Do you know anything this? Clara sent a message. Maya resigned. She'd take evidence. She'd told Clara the truth, and then she'd walked away, clean. As you could walk away from something like this. She typed, no, anything. She put the phone down. On the table between them, the USB drive sat like a small blue bomb, and Clara knew that whatever happened next, the detonator, on. Ethan found the folder on a Tuesday. He was looking for the mortgage statements in the home office filing cabinet, and there it was. Clara's highlighted copies of their joint account statements, the credit card bills, the investment summaries. He carried it downstairs like it was evidence in a trial. What is this? Clara was at the kitchen table, laptop open, answering work emails. She looked up and saw his face and knew. Not surprise, not confusion, just cold, controlled anger, the kind that was worse than shouting. I've been keeping track of our finances, she said. Like any adult should. You've been spying on me. He dropped the folder on the table. Papers slid across the surface. You've been going through our accounts behind my back, making copies, building a case. Is that what this is? You're building a case against me? I'm trying to understand what's happening with our money, with our marriage, with nothing. His voice was low, the way it got when he was truly dangerous. There is nothing happening. Maya quit. She's gone. And you're still here, with your folders and your accusations and your little guest room, acting like I'm some kind of He leaned over the table, and Clara could smell his shampoo, the same shampoo he'd used for 10 years, and the familiarity of it made her stomach. Let me tell you something. If you so much as hint to any Voss, the firm, any, that there's something wrong with the company's finance, I will end. Not the marriage. I have friends in this city. I have connections. You think Northwood Living would keep a marketing director who's dragging her husband's business through the mud? You think anyone in this town would hire you? I will make sure you never work in Portland. The words hung in. Clara heard them clearly, each one landing like a stone water. She'd cry. She just thought, this is the man I married. This is what Heath, okay? She said quietly. Thank you for telling me. He stared at her, like he'd expect. I didn't. He turned. The front started. Tires spun on the mint. Clara sat at the kitchen table for him. Then she closed her laptop. Helen called her into the office at 10. There was a man from HR sitting in the corner, which was never Clara. Helen's was careful. We received an anonymous yesterday. Someone alleged that you've been using company time and resources to handle personal legal matters. They mentioned that your assistant, Marcus Webb, has been running personal errands for you doors. Clara's stomach dropped. Not true. Never. It's true. Up a hand. I'm saying to look into it. It's protocol. Marcus will be interviewed. You'll be interviewed. It's probably nothing. But I need you to understand that these things take time, and during the investigation, I'm going to need you to step back from this ship. Step back. Clara repeated the words like they were foreign language. You're taking me off my own campaign temporarily. Helen looked at her, and Clara saw something in her boss's eyes seen before. Pity. Clara, whatever is going home, get it handled. Because it's things here. Clara walked back to her desk in a fog. Marcus was at his desk, packing a box. What are you doing? She asked. Transfer. He didn't look up. I put in for a move to the office last week. It got approved this morning. I'm leaving Friday. Clara. He kept packing and looked at her, and his face was tired. I like you. You're the best boss I've ever had. But that night at the gala, when you texted me to come be your +1, I should have said no. I should have told you that wasn't my role. And then this HR thing. Someone's using me to get to you, collateral damage. I'm sorry. Picked up his box and walked away. Clara stood in the middle of the office and her shift beneath her. Marcus was leaving. Helen had sidelined her. Ethan had threatened her. Dana was there, but Dana also telling her to be careful, to be strategic, to not make mistakes. She went home at 3. She sat in the guest room, the room she'd cleaned herself, the room supposed to be her safe space, and she looked at the 5 on the nightstand. The evidence. It was supposed to give her power, and for the first time, she let her she'd been avoiding. She was afraid. Not of Ethan, not of his threats or his connections make her look crazy. She was afraid of what came after. If she left, if she really left, and she was 38 years old, job that was slipping away from her, with no children, with a house she couldn't afford on her own, with a life that had been built around being Ethan Bennett's wife for 12 years. Who was she without that? What? She lay back on the bed. The ceiling was white and plain. She thought about the woman she'd been at 26, standing at the altar, believing that love was enough, was making the right choice. About the woman she'd been at 33, taking the marketing director, feeling like she'd finally arrived. She thought about the woman she was now, tired, cornered, holding a USB drive that could destroy a marriage, and possibly. And then she thought, I'm not saving this marriage. I haven't been saving it for months. What I've been doing is trying to survive it. There's a difference. She sat up. She picked up the USB drive. She put it in her purse. She wasn't going to destroy Ethan. Not yet. She was going to use exactly what she was dealing with. And then she was going to make a plan. Because the woman who survived this wasn't going to be the woman who'd walked into that gala. That woman was gone. The new one was construction was going to hurt. Her phone buzzed. Number she didn't recognize. She answered. Clara Bennett? This is David Voss. I'm Ethan's partner. I think we need to talk. About the firm, about your husband, and about something I think you already know. David Voss was 62, with a white beard and the kind of handshake that meant business. He met Clara at a diner on Burnside, the kind with vinyl booths and bottomless coffee, and he slid into the seat across from her like he'd been sitting there for years. I've known Ethan for 15 years, Voss said without preamble. I hired him straight out of grad school. He was brilliant, still is. But brilliant people make terrible mistakes when they think no one's watching. Clara held her coffee cup with both hands. What do you think I know? I think you know he's been routing money through a fake vendor account. M. Torres Consulting. I've known for 2 months. I've been auditing quietly, trying to figure out the scope before I confronted him. Voss's eyes were sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. I also know Maya Torres resigned last week, and I know she came to you before she left. Clara didn't deny. How? Because she emailed me a copy of everything she gave. Same day. She's covering her bases. Sent it to you, sent it to me, probably sent it to her lawyer too. Voss took a sip of coffee. Smart kid, scared, but Clara felt something shift in her chest. She wasn't alone in. She hadn't been alone for a while, she realized. She'd just been too busy feeling cornered to notice. What do you want from? She asked. Nothing that hurt. Voss set his cup. Here's the situation. Ethan has diverted approximately $84,000 from firm accounts over the past 8 months. Some of it went to other things I'm still tracing. If I go to the board with this, Ethan loses his partnership. He could face civil, possibly criminal, depending on what the audit. And if I don't, then I'm it. And I'm not going to jail for Ethan. Voss leaned forward. I'm telling you this because you're his wife, and whatever happens, you're going to be. The firm is a marital asset. Half of his partnership interest is yours. If he goes down, Your financial future goes down with him unless you... Clara stared at him. How? A lawyer? Not a divorce lawyer. A forensic accountant and a family law attorney who understands business. File before he does. Because the moment Ethan realizes I know, he's going to call his lawyer, and he's going to try to move money, and he's going to try to make you look like the unreasonable wife. Voss pulled a card from his wallet and slid it across the table. My attorney. She's good. She'll tell you the truth even when it's ugly. Call her. Claire picked up the card. The name read, Margaret Chen. Me. I'm not helping you. I'm helping myself. If Ethan's wife is prepared and reasonable, this gets messy, but gets resolved. If Ethan's wife is blindsided and desperate, this gets ugly and public. And it's bad for the firm. Bad for me. Voss stood up. I'm a selfish man, Clara. Don't ever make me for a friend. But right now our interests align. That, he left. Clad in the vinyl booth, the card in one hand, coffee in the other. And she thought about what it meant to have someone on her friend. Voss was using her. She knew that. Was using him too. And for the first time in months she called Margaret. The receptionist scheduled a vacation for Thursday. Dana, I help me build a budget, Clara said. A single-person budget. Rent, utilities, food, insurance, everything. I need to know exactly how I need to live on my... Clara. Dana's voice was soft. Are you sure? No, Clara started her car. But I'm unsure and doing nothing. I'd rather be sure scared than scared and stuck. She drove. Ethan was there, sitting at the case of bourbon. He looked up when she walked in, and his face was dimmed. Not angry, just tired. Voss called me, Ethan said. It's a meeting, Friday. About the quarterly He paused. He knows, does It wasn't a question. Clara set her purse on the counter. Ethan nodded slowly. Whirled the bourbon in a glass. And you? Did you know? Yes. Of course you did. He laughed, and it sounded broken. My wife. My brilliant, careful, relentless wife. You've been building your case this whole time, haven't you? Folders, statements. You played me. I didn't play you, Ethan. I didn't. There's a difference. She stood across the table from him. You paid a woman from company funds. You called my boss. You threatened my career. You've been lying to me for months. I didn't play you. Stopped letting you play. He looked at her. First time, she saw the loss of control. The man who always had the right word, the right angle, the right manipulation, was sitting at their kitchen table and nothing to say. Friday, he said. Voss to meet Friday. Then what? Then I meet my lawyer on Thursday. Figure out what comes next. Clara turned toward the stairs. You should too. She went up to the guest room. She closed the door. Bed and looked at the card and... Attorney at law. And she thought about the version of herself that had Sentinel Hotel 3 weeks ago. A green dress, ready to be the wife. That woman was on. The new one, a lawyer's card. And a meeting on Thursday. And for the first time in a very long time, Clara Bennett went to sleep feeling like she was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Because the shoe already dropped, and she was still standing. Margaret Chen's office was on the 14th floor of a building downtown, with windows that looked out over the Willamette River. She was 51, wore a blazer with the sleeves pushed up, and had a voice like a judge who'd already decided the verdict but was letting you talk anyway. Here's what we know, Margaret said, spreading documents across her desk. Your husband has diverted at least $84,000 from Voss and Bennett. You have evidence. Voss has evidence. Maya Torres has evidence. This is not a he said, she said, Clara. This is a paper trail. I don't want to destroy him, Clara said. I just want out. With what's mine. That's reasonable. And it's also the strongest position you could be in. Margaret picked up a pen. Because you're not asking for the moon. You're asking for an equitable division of marital assets, which includes his partnership interest. If Ethan wants to avoid a public scandal, if Voss wants to avoid a public scandal, then they both have incentive to settle with you quickly and fairly. And if he doesn't settle, then we file. We disclose everything. The court sees the financial misconduct, the emotional manipulation, the attempt to sabotage your career. You get a better settlement and he gets a worse reputation. But it takes longer. It costs more. And it's Margaret set the pen down. My recommendation, we send a formal... We lay out what we know. We propose a settlement number. We give him 10 days to... What's number? Margaret. Claimed. It was more than she did. Enough to put a down payment on a small... Enough to live on for a year while she built her own... And can he hear that? He can if he wants to keep his chip. Voss will make... Margaret smiled, and it was not a warm smile. Your husband made him, Clara. He thought your power with him. That if he cut you off from your job, your friends, your confidence, you'd have nothing. But your power was never him. It was always you, and he's about to... The letter went out Wednesday. By Thursday evening, Ethan's lawyer had called Margaret's office to... Ethan called Clara, didn't text. He moved his things out of the master bedroom and office, and they passed each other in the hallway like roommates who... Friday. Voss. Clara didn't know what was meeting. But when Ethan that night, he poured himself a drink and sat in the dark living room for 3 hours. When Clara walked, he said, "Voss is forcing me to buy back my own chip shares. At a discount. He said if I don't agree..." "That sounds like a consequence," Clara said. He looked up at her. His eyes were red. "I didn't up to anything. He found out you were stealing from the company you built together. That's not my fault. That's yours." He stopped in the doorway. "Ethan, I'm not your enemy. I'm just no longer your ally. There's a difference." The settlement meeting was on Tuesday. Clara sat at Margaret's side in a conference room that smelled like new carpet. Ethan sat across with his lawyer, a slick man in a tailored suit, his phone. The negotiation took 4 hours. Ethan argued. His lawyer argued. Margaret countered with documents, with timelines, with the quiet confidence of some. By the end, the number was slightly lower than Margaret's initial proposal, still enough. Clara would get the settlement, her retirement account, her car, and a release from any liability related to the firm's financial issues. Ethan would keep the house. He'd have to refinance to buy out her share, and his partner, though diminished. "One more thing," Margaret said as the papers were being passed around. "My client requires a written apology, not for the record, for her. A personal letter, acknowledging the financial misconduct and the attempt." Ethan's lawyer started to object. Ethan held up a hand. "Fine, I'll write." Clara looked at him. He wasn't looking at her. He was staring at the tape, at his own hands. He was ashamed. Not because he'd been caught, though that was part of it, but because somewhere beneath the and the manipulation, he'd been wrong. And knowing it didn't fix anything, they signed the paper. Clara's hand was steady. Ethan's was not. When they walked out of the building, rain was falling. Stood under the awning and said, "To go this far." "I know," said. "That's the problem. You never meant for any of it to go this far. You just kept making small choices, and one day you looked to recognize your own light." He looked. "Did you ever love me?" "For a long time. More than I should have." She pulled her coat tighter. "But love isn't enough when the person you love keeps telling you you're doing what's right in front of you." She walked to her car. She didn't look back. Behind her, she heard Ethan's lawyer say something, and Ethan's voice, defeated, answering. She drove to Dana's apartment. Dana had Thai food waiting and a bottle of wine that was too expensive for a Tuesday. Clara sat on the couch, and Dana had a glass. Clara said, "It's..." "The papers are signed." Did her. Clara didn't cry. She'd done enough crying in the month. She sat there, holding wine, and felt the strange, weightless feeling of a burden she'd carried for you being set down. Her phone buzzed. A text from him. "The HR investigation is closed." The anonymous tip was unsubstantiated. "You're back on the campaign." "Oh, I'm sorry. I should have you." Clara stared at the message. She thought about Ethan's threat to never work in Portland again. She thought about being blind, about Marcus leaving, about standing in Helen's arms like her career was stay. Back. "Thank you. I'm resigning." She went down. Dale looked at her. "What did you just do?" "Should have done a long time ago." Clara took a sip of wine. "I'm starting my own firm, marketing consulting, for small businesses, for people who big agencies, but..." She looked at... "I have the settlement money. I have the experience. I have you to do my books. What do you think?" Dana stared for a long moment. She grinned. "Terrifying. And I think it's going to work." Clara smiled. It was the first real smile she'd had in months. Outside, the rain kept falling, and somewhere across town, Ethan Bennett was sitting in an empty house, an apology letter he didn't know how to begin. The apology letter arrived on Thursday. It was printed on Ethan's firm letterhead, which felt wrong, like a business communication instead of a human one. Clara read it standing in the kitchen of the house she was about to leave. "Dear Clara," it began, "I am writing to acknowledge that I made serious mistakes. I misused company funds. I attempted to contact your employer in a way that was inappropriate and unprofessional. I minimized your concerns and made you feel as though your perceptions were invalid. I am sorry, that was it." 3 sentences, correct, polite, empty. Clara folded the letter and put it in a drawer. She didn't throw it away. She didn't frame it. She just put it somewhere she wouldn't have to look at it, because an apology that reads like a legal deposition isn't an apology. It's a receipt. The moving truck came on Saturday. Dana showed up with coffee and $1. Marcus, who'd driven down from Seattle for the weekend, carried boxes while Dana directed traffic like a general. Clara packed the kitchen, the dishes she'd picked, the blender she'd gotten for a wedding present, the coffee mug Ethan had brought her from a conference in Chicago that's world's okayest wife. She'd laughed when he gave it to her. She didn't laugh now. Ethan wasn't. He'd gone to a coffee shop for the morning, said he didn't want to be in the. Clara was grateful for it. She didn't think she could handle him hugging, watching her take things, deciding what was hers and what was his, like they were dividing up a dorm. By noon, the truck was half full. Clara was in the bedroom packing the last of her clothes when she heard the front door. Ethan's footsteps. He walked up the stairs and stood in the. You're taking the group. It wasn't an accusation. It was an obsession. The green lamp was the first thing they'd bought her, at a flea market on their first anniversary. It was avocado green with a shade that didn't quite match, but Clara had loved it because Ethan had haggled the vendor down from $20 to $12, and he'd been so proud of himself. Mine, Clara said. We bought it. He leaned against the. Clara, talk? Not about money, not about the firm, just talk. She stopped packing. She took him. The bedroom was empty, her side of the closet bare, her books off the nightstand, the green lamp sitting by the door. Okay, talk. He sat on the bed. The bed they'd shared for 12 years. The sheets were still the ones she'd bought last spring, navy blue, high thread count, the kind that felt like luxury when you're unhappy. I have been unhappy for a long time, and in you. With it. I found someone who made me feel interesting again. Listen to me. I was brilliant. She didn't roll her eyes when I talked about the firm, or tell me I was thinking too much, or He paused. And I know that makes me sound like a cliché. I know. But it's the truth. Claire stood very still. You could have told me happy. I was afraid. Afraid you'd leave. Afraid you'd look at me like I was a failure. Afraid that if I said the words out, it'd be true. He looked at his hands. It's what I always do. I managed it. I controlled the narrative. I told myself I was fine. Told we're overreacting. Told Maya she was just a colleague. I believed all of it, Clara. I really did. Until Voss called me into his office and showed me the numbers. And I realized I'd been lying to myself so well, I couldn't remember. It was quiet. Outside, Dana was telling Mark careful with the lamp. Clara could hear them laughing, the normal sound of people who weren't in the middle part. Why did you call? She asked. My job. Ethan closed his eyes. Because if you were busy fighting for your career, time to fight me. I thought if you look unstable, then no one would believe you when you told them what I'd done. It was cowardly. It was wrong. And I'm not sorry because I got caught. I'm sorry because I did it to you. The ones at my graduation, who helped me plan for this firm, who stayed up with me when Voss almost pulled out of the part. I did that to you. Clara felt something loosen in her chest. Not forgiveness. She wasn't there. Might never be, but something else. The recognition that the man across from her was broken, not evil. His cruelty had come from fear, not. And that fear, while it explained what he'd done, not excuse it. I'm going to leave now, she said. I'm going to take my things, and I'm going to start my own business, and I'm going to build a life involved being your wife. And I need you to understand, this isn't revenge. This isn't me proving something to you. This is me finally living I should have been living all along. Ethan nodded. He stood up. For a moment, Clara thought he was going to hug her, or say something that would make this harder. Instead, he picked up the grip to her. You're right, he said. You bought it. It's yours. She took it. Their fingers brushed, and she pulled her hand back like she'd touched something hot. She jumped down the stairs and out to the truck. Dana took her and wrapped it in a blanket. You okay? Dana asked. Clara looked back at the house. Ethan was standing in the upstairs watching them load the truck. He raised. She didn't back, she said. The truck pulled away from the house on S.E. Reed College Place an hour later. Clara sat in the cab between Dana and us, the green lamp on her lap, and she watched the neighborhood she'd lived in for 6 years slide past, the coffee shop with the orange awning, park where she'd walked on Sunday mornings, the house with the roaches that the neighbor tended like a religion. She didn't cry. She'd feel triumphant. She just felt done, like a book she'd been years had finally reached the last page, and while she hadn't loved the ending, know how it turned out. Her phone buzzed. A text from Margaret Chen. The refinance on the house went through. Your share will be in your account by Wednesday. Congratulations, Clara. You're officially a free woman. Clara stared at the words. Free woman thought that would feel liberation. Instead, it felt like standing at the edge of a diving board. Water, she couldn't see the bottom. She put the phone away. The truck merged onto the freeway northeast toward her new apartment. The green lamp was warm against her legs. And somewhere behind her, Ethan Bennett was standing alone in an empty house, holding a letter he'd rewritten 3 times, and still couldn't get right. The apartment was on the 3rd floor of a brick building in northeast Portland, above a used bookstore, and around the corner from a taqueria that smelled like cilantro and lime at all hours. It was 800 square feet, with hardwood floors that creaked and a radiator that clanked when the heat came on. The bedroom was barely big enough for a queen bed, and the kitchen had a window that looked out onto an alley where a cat sat on a fence every morning at 7. Clara loved it. She'd been there 3 weeks. The green lamp sat on the dresser in the bedroom, its avocado shade glowing softly in the evenings. The kitchen had her dishes, her blender, her coffee maker. The bathroom had her towels, her face cream, the toothbrush she'd bought the day she moved in because she'd forgotten to pack the old one. Everything in the apartment was hers. Not half hers. Not jointly owned. Hers. The consulting business was slow. She'd printed business cards, Clara Bennett, independent marketing strategy, and she'd emailed every contact she had, every former client, every vendor she'd ever worked with. 3 people had written back. One had hired her for a small project, a local bakery needing a social media strategy. The money was a fraction of what she'd made at Northwood, but when the check arrived, she'd held it in her hand for 5 minutes before depositing. It was the first money she'd earned that didn't belong to a marriage, a company, or anyone's idea of who she should be. The opening party was Dana's idea. You need to celebrate, she'd said. Not the divorce. The new thing. You've never thrown a party for yourself. It's time. Clara had resisted, then caved. She made a cheap. Dana brought. Marcus drove down from Seattle and brought up a pothos, said, because it was impossible. A former colleague from Northwood showed up with a bottle of champagne. I always knew you'd go into. You were too good for that. 2 small business owners Clara had met at a networking event, one with a laptop, asking if Clara had time next week to talk about the apartment. People were talking, laughing, passing. Clara stood by the window, holding a glass of wine, and she thought about gala, the Sentinel Hotel, the chandeliers, Ethan's laugh, Maya's hand. She thought about how she'd stood in that bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror and felt like she was here, in her creaky apartment with the clanking radiator and the cat outside the window. She felt like shearing. Her phone buzzed. She got out. A text from Ethan. House sold. Closed today. Got less than we hoped, but it's done. Your portion is in your account. Pure well. She stood the message. It was polite, distant. The kind of text you send to someone you used to know. She thought about typing back. Congratulations, or thank you, or I hope you. She thought about the apology letter. About his void bedroom. About the green lamp he'd handed her. She set the phone face down. Not because she was cruel. Because she didn't owe him a response in that moment. Because she was at a party in her apartment, surrounded by people who didn't to be there. And Dana appeared beside her with 2 fresh. Who was that? Ethan. The house sold. Dana nodded. And nothing. Took the wine. And all of it. The house, the firm, the mare. Good. Dana clinked her gauze. Now you get to have a life that isn't defined. The party went down around 10. Marcus helped her clean up, carrying plates to the kitchen while Dana clinged. By 11 they were gone, and quiet. Clara stood in the middle of the living room and looked at the mess. Glasses on the coffee table, crumbs on the floor. The pothos plant sitting on the counter left it. Up. She walked to the bedroom, changed into sweatpants and a t-shirt, and went out onto the small bedroom. The night was cool. Portland in October. The air smelled like rain and fallen leaves, and someone's fire was over. She leaned against the rail, looked out at the city. She thought about the Sentinel Hotel, the mirror. The way she'd stood there and told herself to hold it together. The text to Marcus. Walk back into the ballroom, with her hand. She thought about all the versions of herself that had existed 3 months. The wife who'd smiled through humiliation. The woman who'd highlighted bank statements at the kitchen table. Client in Dana's office, hearing for the first time that she wasn't crazy. The person who'd sat across from Maya in a tea shop and realized the truth she'd imagined. The wife who'd signed papers and walked away. The woman who'd started a business with a laptop and a stack of business cards, guarantee it would work. A deep breath. The air was cold in her lungs. She'd arrived anywhere. She didn't feel filled or whole or triumphant. She felt like someone who'd survived a storm and was standing in the wreckage, looking at the pieces, and realizing that some of the pieces knew. Buzzed inside. An email, it could wait. She balcony a while longer, watching the city lights, and somewhere below, the cat from the alley jumped down from the into the dark. Clara smiled. She went back inside, locked the balcony door, went to bed in her 2 small bedroom, under her own sheets, in her own apartment, in a life that was only hers. The green lamp glowed on the dresser. Outside, the rain started, soft and tapping against the window. And for the first time in years, Clara Bennett fell asleep without waiting for something to go wrong.